Oh man, we're live here. Hopefully y'all can hear me. Uh, I've never actually streamed my screen before. It's always been like specifically a game, so I hope this is working well. I did not pipe in any other sound or anything like that because I don't think we're going to be having any other than like the Windows like blah, or whatever the heck it is. But I thought we'd start out this stream with some wireframes, move on over to some prototypes, and then move on over to this guy, which is literally just our blank template that we're going to be using in Webflow here. And this is the Webflow Designer, just an FYI for everybody. But we'll go back to the wireframes. Now, please excuse the fact that my mouse, the scroll wheel is broken, and I have a replacement mouse. I just have not had a chance to hook it up yet and like route it through the desk and all that stuff. So I'm going to have to use keyboard shortcuts to zoom in and out, because as you can see, like I'm scrolling like crazy right now. And it either does nothing, or it does like a bunch. Like it starts going back and forth and everything by itself. But anyway, we'll start out here. We have a variety, actually, of wireframes to get through today. So we have 8 wireframes to get through. And then we have 4 prototypes that we're going to be showing off. And I'll explain why there's 8 and 4 in a little bit as well. So let's just kind of go through. So I'm going to show off what Mike and I kind of do for our own projects, and much of this can be used for clients as well. Obviously, clients want wireframes. Some clients want prototypes. Some clients want both. It really depends. And I know that Mike and I, if you listen to our podcast, constantly talk about how you can lower the price by lowering the investment in the design process. And so oftentimes we have clients who will just solely want the wireframe, this type of thing. These are easy, quick to spin up. We use Balsamiq, specifically the Balsamiq Cloud version of the software. And just quick, easy things we can spin up, show the client. They say, yep, no, whatever. And we usually give them a few options. So I'm going to go through the option that Mike and I have completely decided upon. And then I'll go through some of the changes that we're probably going to be making, as this was done a while ago. And we had a podcast about this earlier as well. So this is our homepage. This is a really kind of typical tech blog, I guess you could say. More or less, you have your nav bar, you have all your nav icons, you have your logo over here. And already I can say that there very well could be something that we change in here. More recently, we've just found that people keep adding things to headers. Like it's almost like the slider. It's almost like the slider effect, where every website for a very long time had a slider, and as a result, many still do now. Now, there's no problems with sliders, although there's ups and downs about it, and they aren't really a requirement. But I find that people replace the quote-unquote need for a slider with a need to really pack in the navbar, and we are no exception to that rule. So I'm going to show you how in the prototype, actually, we already changed this, and I'll explain why it's not changed here in a bit as well. So here's our navbar, basic layout. Here's our socials. Here's more socials, as well as we didn't have Patreon logos and a Discord logo in Balsamiq, so I just used some generic things so I would know. Obviously, all of our sort of layout, or all of our pages are sort of laid out here in order of relative importance / frequency. So for the most part, it's like articles are going to be a big piece of the HTML All the Things website. The podcast, obviously a big piece. Community, obviously a big piece. And these three can the top 3 can sort of be jumbled around in terms of importance. But then code challenges. So we've done one in the past, but we want to sort of get more involved in that. But we may or may not change how that works. We may or may not change how that works. We may or may not sort of move stuff around. And what I mean by that is we just kind of did a code challenge and told everyone to go on the Discord and talk about it and share the link. We kind of want it to be a little more structured, but code challenges will be sort of few and far between in comparison to articles being published, right? We're not going to have a new code challenge every day. So that's why it's in the 4th slot. And then contact us is just sort of a generic thing that we'll be going through. We scroll down here. I'll just zoom in a tiny bit. I'll scroll down here. We have obviously our 4 big headings. Now, this is sort of a bit of design language that we wanted to keep and wanted to have in everything that or not everything, but in a few of the other pages, and we'll touch on those in a minute. So these are sort of like the big headliners. Now, the big thing about these is I made these portrait because I was thinking of phones, but they also fit nicely in this sort of row. And the design idea came from, we were actually going to have more than 4. So it was going to be like 6. Obviously, that's too big. And we were going to have like an arrow here, which you could scroll. Now, there's some, responsivity stuff, of course, that comes in when you're on smaller screens that I'll show you in a sec here. But for the most part, we sort of cut that idea down and did the top 4 stories. So these are the big stories. These are the headlines. These are the headliners. These are what people want to check. And the idea is you come to the site, you check the 4 headliners, and if you're really interested, of course, go through the community spotlight and from the news and all the rest of it. But if you're a person who's, say, already listened to the podcast that week, gone through and read through all this, checked out the community spotlight, and you're just checking the sort of web news, if you will, then this is sort of where you hit. Refresh the page, and this is very bookmarkable, and I'll touch on that in a sec as well. Lots to cover today. So this is sort of our bookmarkable piece, is you come into the website and bam, you're hit with these 4. And so you can more or less refresh the page, hit your bookmark and refresh, whatever you want, whatever you need to do. And you can just say like, oh, I've kind of caught up today on the hat site, and that's it. And you don't really need to scroll down very far, and it's not like really cumbersome, but it's very easy to use. Community Spotlight is going to be a big thing that we want to push. Now, we haven't figured out the logistics of this yet, although it will sort of be, it's a website, so more or less blog post. We haven't figured out the logistics of showing this off, but right now in our Discord server, we have a channel called Project Work Showcase, something like that. And our Project Work Showcase is great. It's great for people to share their links and stuff like that. And it's as far, I think, as a sort of Discord can go in terms of it. So like that implementation of it's fine, and people can still use that, no problem. But we kind of wanted it to be more, and short of us constantly tagging at everybody every single time somebody posts a project that they did, that's just getting to be too much. So, or that would be too much. So this is sort of a way where if somebody, and again, we haven't figured out the logistics of this, but the general idea is if somebody goes on our Discord and posts, hey, I have this cool project I'm working on, this calculator app, and it has a crazy transition effect or something like that in CSS only, and it only does all the calculations are done just in regular JS or something, like a cool spin on something easy, or even a really complex project, where they're like, hey, I built this whole forum, and there's this login system, and then it pulls from the API and all the rest of it. So the reason why I mention that is because, any sort of cool project from any complexity can be shown here. It doesn't need to be some crazy headliner. So this is sort of what we wanted to show off, where we want to show off and kind of give back to the community and sort of help people sort of build up that way. Scroll down again. From the news, this is sort of a very standard thing. These are just going to be sort of older articles or articles that aren't featured yet, and we'll get into the logistics of that when we actually configure the CMS. So that'll be that kind of piece, and then of course an ad spot here as well. And then we move down to frameworks. So we were thinking at the time, and again, the reason why this is so modular is because we may change, remove, add, whatever, but this was supposed to be we were going to do coverage on a certain framework. So it would be like jQuery, and then we do a bunch of coverage on jQuery, or Tailwind CSS, and you do a bunch of stuff on there. But obviously we can't be looking at a new tech every day. So whether this makes it into the homepage is remains to be seen. This piece in terms of design probably will, but this category just might not. If we zoom out and we move over, here's just the sort of tablet view, and here's what I mean by these are fading away. So we're going to have it so that on tablets, especially when they're in portrait mode, depending on the size, as well as on mobile, you will have to sort of scroll through, and we're going to have sort of a fade effect here. But you basically will just sort of scroll. You can just do the same type of thing. So you can just quickly refresh and then just scroll over to the right and just say yep, I've checked all the headlines today, and you just kind of move on. These get a bit more square-ish. These are 1-to-1 now rather than the widescreen. These get in a row, and we only have 3 of them, so we may or may not adjust this as we go. And then these are spread out, and there's actually 4 of them now. Again, we're going to kind of let more than likely Flexbox kind of take over this. Now, if we zoom in here, I'm just going to zoom in and go over to the mobile here because it's right on the edge of the screen. So same type of thing. As you can see, it's cut off here. The community spotlight gets the same treatment. It's cut off and gets moved over. Now, we might completely cut this. This is one of those design decisions that we may change. I actually built this in October of 2019, and we've just been super busy. So we might actually make these kind of go down and cause like some scrolling. I know that some people are really against scrolling, so we're going to probably play with it. It might be a real pain to get these to work on Webflow. I don't really know yet, but we will see. Now we're also going to scroll down. As you can see, there's only one of this here. Now all of these pages, all of these sections can be expanded to so you can click on the see all. You can click in, you can see all of this community spotlight. You can see the collection of what we're talking about, and then obviously there's no like collection of featured because they'll just be in the normal sort of blog. Now I've noticed this, and I don't know whether this is standard on projects like or software like this, but you can't actually go to the next page unless you zoom all the way out, and then you can go to the next page with your keyboard. A little strange, but whatever. So here's the navbar. Now I've always been a proponent of having really good navbar design, and if you're new to web development, I think that specifically if you're doing UI development, that the navbar is sort of a great tool to learn everything. Navbars, even when they're minimalistic, are generally one of the more compact areas of a site. They're always present on websites, or virtually always present on websites, and they're very media intensive for such a small space. So we have icons, we got a picture, we got more icons, we have text/links in here. In cases you have drop downs sometimes. In our case, here's the default layout. Then when you scroll it changes style. And then when you go here, when you go to mobile, this is going to be at the bottom. So I'm just going to go back and show you. It's at the bottom so you can reach it with your thumb on big phones. Obviously no one has a phone this tall. You can click into here, you can click, and then this pops up, and here's all your icons and that type of thing. Now, I can already see that we might change this design because that's a little crowded, but this is generally what we want to do. We're going to move over to the next page here. So, articles collection. Articles collection is obviously the articles collection. Now, the reason why it's called a collection is because we're going to get into Webflow terminology when we actually start touching on Webflow. We might not get there today, obviously because we're talking a lot about the design and the general layout and that type of thing. Yeah, that is a long phone, stars. But yeah, so this is the articles collection. Now, collections in Webflow are literally the collection of whatever it is. So in this case, it's articles, or essentially it would be considered blog posts. And this is reason why it's a collection is because here's like article 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Well, there's an ad there, but 6, 7, 8, whatever. So it's the collection of them, and then when you click in on them, you're on the specific items. So there's a collection of items. The items are the blog posts, and this is the collection showing all the ones. Yeah, the new foldable ones. I'm actually interested in the Samsung. Definitely interested in the Samsung foldable phones, but at like Gen 3 or 4 probably, I wouldn't still, even though they're getting way better, and I'd like them to get even better, if that makes sense, and cheaper, to be fair. But here's really basic. Here's our general layout. This we even said in the beginning, this could get crowded, and so we may adjust this. And a lot of this stuff we're going to be adjusting on the fly. And of course, just really basic. Here's your tablet layout, and here's your mobile layout. So as you can see, the nav bar sort of adjusts as needed. The nav bar becomes just a top bar that will disappear, and we may make it stick, I don't know. And then here's obviously our sticky nav bar, where it's nice and accessible, so you can click on it even on this super, super long phone. This would be like, you'd need a special pocket to carry this. It wouldn't even be comfortable in a jacket pocket, but okay. Moving on, here is one of the item pages, or specifically the article page. Very basic, here it is, articles, news. So it was an article. Here's the category, very easy. Here's the hero image. Here's the title. Here's the author. Here's the share. Here's the share area. Obviously, here's your rich text. Now, we'll probably have more rich text than that before an ad, although I don't know about ad ratios yet, but this is just an example of, hey, look, we're splitting it up. And that's something that's important in wireframes, I find, is to ensure that you have a sample of everything. So we knew that in specifically long articles, but even maybe in short ones, we're not sure yet, that we will have ads possibly splitting up the content. So because that's a possibility, we just put one in the wireframe. We want an example of that so that people can see it. And if you're giving this to a client, absolutely they want to be able to see it. Zoom in here. As you can see very clearly, ad banner at the bottom. more from HTML, the things will make this probably the same category, or maybe based on the date or something like that into the related field. Scroll over, as you can see, this gets shrunk down. Again, we might keep the 3 items and just flex them down. We're not sure yet. And if and on here, same type of thing, split here by the add, as well as the more from HTML, the things down at the bottom. So we're going to scroll or zoom out, go back. Okay, so here is an example of the Community Spotlight collection. Now, obviously, I want to point out one thing. Obviously, there's a mistake here. This isn't highlighted. When you go and you do wireframes for clients, most people want to do pixel perfect, or at least as perfect as we can as humans type of thing. For Mike and I, we don't care about that type of thing. We know like this should be highlighted. So obviously this is a small nitpick, but the reason why I'm saying we might change, like a lot of the times where I'm saying we might change this design, we might make this flexible, we might do this. It's because this project is for Mike and I, and we are both obviously experienced in web development, and therefore we know when things are going to be changed, or we understand from a wireframe how things are going to sort of feel, and we know that things might change based on that feel type of thing. So that's kind of why we do it that way. So here, real basic, we're going to be, here's a picture, like there'll be a picture in the background. There'll be like what I call a BG mask, a background mask. And that'll be just like a darker texture so that the text shows up. And then it just shows the title. It shows the title and the author as well. Just going to shut off my smartwatch here because I am constantly getting called for some reason. It's like, oh, somebody went live. Let's call 4 times. Okay. So we scroll down. You can see all of this. Project names, the authors. Here's like a sponsored post, that type of thing. Now, we would love to keep projects up as long as we can. This is sort of something where, so if you think about it, a news article, or a quick guide, or us giving our show notes is sort of a consumable almost. Where we can archive it and we will, and we'll keep it there. But for the most part, it's sort of used for a week, used for a month, and then it's gone. But these are sort of more permanent, and this is why these have a bigger presence on the site. It's like, bam, take a look at this. And we've actually had discussions where we were thinking maybe we should just have really big tiles, where it's one big tile that takes up all 6 of these, and we really show it off. And these are supposed to be more or less sort of quote unquote forever. Now, we probably will associate a date with it still, but it will still be something where if somebody Googles that project, like if let's say the project name was literally project name and they Google project name, we would love them to come to us and they'll see the link and what it looks like and all the rest of it. So that is what that is for. Really basic, obviously, as we go down to the phone size as well. We're going to zoom out, go back over. Here's the Community Spotlight page. So this is what each individual item will more than likely have. We want each item to sort of have a nice big description. Here is again one of those tech demos of an ad being in line with the text. So again, because we know or we don't know exactly what our ad strategy is going to be, we showed earlier that ad banner and that we're showing this little one. The reason why we're doing that is because, for our own sanity, because we might actually do this, but if you think about if this was a client project, clients are definitely going to associate one with another. So for example, if they see this page and they really hate this, they'll refer to that other wireframe and say, hey, I like that banner one. And that's really critical because now you have something that the client acknowledges and they're able to not acknowledge, but they're able to reference directly, and you know exactly what they're talking about. There's no like, oh, I think I know what that guy's talking about. You know exactly what they're talking about. So here's the Community Spotlight item. Same header as before. Here we're going to have a nice thumbnail here. We're going to adjust this potentially. We might make it a hero. Like I said, this thing might get adjusted. But we're going to make these, certainly you click it, there'll be a light box. You're going to be able to scroll through in the little thumbnail if you'd prefer. But you're going to have a nice big thumbnail. You're going to click in. There's going to be a light box. You're going to be able to show off your project. You're going to be able to show where it's available on. So whether it's just available on a site, whether it's available on GitHub, whether it's available on whatever, we just sort of put 2 generic things. And again, that's why we put a generic website here, because this button can be changed to anything. If we don't have a GitHub icon on hand, we could easily say this is on github.com. Easy enough. Here's our project name, obviously submitted by whoever it is. Here's their socials and their GitHub. So, whatever, if they want to share us, if they really want people to hit their Facebook page, we're absolutely going to, sort of plug that. And here's more from HTML, the things. We don't know whether this is going to be blog posts. We don't know whether this is going to be more projects, probably blog posts, because it shows that the site's updated. but we'll see. Scroll through again, very basic. This gets bigger. This goes centered now rather than being, left right. This goes, top bottom, and the same thing here just kind of goes through the regular motions as responsive websites do. Then we do, okay, so this is going to be an interesting page that is probably going to be manipulated a fair bit, but this is an important page to us. So our podcast obviously is very important to us, and we're going to try something interesting, and it might completely fail, and that's what will really change the design. And so I'll get into that right now. So I'm going to zoom in, and you can see here there's just this really big sort of player, and then there's this ad, and then there's recent episodes in this. So here's the design language on this page. What we want this to be, again, is bookmarkable. Something where somebody can easily bookmark it and come back to it. We want the page to have a piece of value that is immediate, updated consistently, and repeatable. Meaning that we want someone to be able to come in and very quickly need, want, and get something. So in this case, if you're a person that doesn't have podcast app, doesn't want to fumble with your phone because you're on your computer, or maybe you're on a work computer and they don't allow you to, at work, use your phone, but you're allowed to, say, stream in the office, you can very quickly, without signing in, without any of that, come to this page and play the latest episode. And that's exactly what's up top here. Quick, easy, here's your latest episode. And if you're a fan of the show, you know that we release more or less every Wednesday at noon, and noon Eastern-ish. The time zones keep changing, and I don't think my scheduler changes time zones, so it's around noon. Anyway, so let's say it's Wednesday, 1 p.m. Eastern, you're like, those HTML guys, I really want to listen to a podcast. Those HTML guys probably got their podcast ready. They probably got it out. They can hit the bookmark and come right here. You don't have to sign in. You don't have to do anything like that. You can hit this page, hit play. And that's what I mean by bookmarkable, something that is immediately valuable. And that goes with this recent episodes thing here as well. So the recent episodes design language, if you remember, comes from the first page, comes from the home page. And this is supposed to be those 4 big pieces of content. It's something where if, let's say, you didn't listen to our podcast that week and you were like, hey, I'm a couple weeks behind. Where am I? This is more or less going to be, for anyone who is not new to the show, this is going to be where they're going to live. They're going to either go right to the latest episode, or they're going to get value from these 4 right here. It's going to be super simple, super valuable, and a lot of information sort of on 1 or 2 pages, depending on how big your screen is and depending on how much you have to scroll. But you're going to be able to say like, oh, I'm 2 episodes behind. You're going to scroll down. Oh, I've listened to this one, not this one. Click this, and you're going to go in, and we're going to show you the full podcast page in a minute here. So we scroll down. Here's our older episodes. So the older episodes, these are sort of an archive, and they have the same design language-ish of the community spotlight. The reason why that is because these are sort of a permanent page. So if you go to our RSS feed right now, I believe it's limited to, and don't quote me, but I believe it's limited to 99 or 100 episodes. So we're above 100 episodes now, over 100, certainly over 100 uploads, because we also have tidbit episodes as well. And so as a result, you, if you're a brand new listener, really can't go back and listen to episode 1. Now with podcasts, there's an argument to be had there where you can say, well, you should be listening to the latest because that's their greatest. You should, or some people are very sort of completionists and they want to go all the way back. And we want to have sort of an option there for everybody. And that's exactly what this is. So let's hypothetically say, this is episode 5, so it would be like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Obviously, I'm not counting the right order, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then another episode comes in. So now it's the 6th piece of content. It would get knocked down to here. And the reason why it has the same design language as the community spotlight is this is sort of like the archive for the podcast. All right. See you later, stars. No worries. But this is the older episodes. And so this is the same design language where it's going to be, this is where we're going to store the show notes. This is where you're going to be able to refer to the show notes. This is where the sort of the Google search results are going to land. And these are supposed to be sort of a quote unquote permanent home for the older podcast episodes. And you can click the see all and see all the other ones as well. So, okay, here is the rest of it. Obviously very simple responsivity as we all go. Now, one thing I do want to mention about this top thing is we host our podcast on Podbean. Podbean offers an embedded player, and I am going to try, never tried it before, to make a custom player on Webflow rather than use the embedded one. So it's still going to play the file that's hosted on Podbean, but if everything goes wrong, we may have to change this page a lot, which is why I mentioned that earlier. So I'm just going to zoom out, go to the next page. Podcast page. Here is our individual podcast page. Very similar to the other pages. Very similar. So we're going to go through. You can do a comment. We may or may not do comments. We're not sure on that. This is a big if. More from HTML, the things we always want to keep people in the site and prevent them from bouncing out, if you will. So this is why this is sort of here on many of the pages, because it's supposed to be like, okay, if you think about it, if you know about Google Analytics and that type of thing, a bounce is when someone comes into the site for the first time. They come into the site and like just say I'm a new user. I'm like, oh, what's this HTML the things thing? So you come in and you hit the site and then you're like, and you just go back. If you do that super quick, you're considered a bounce. Like you came into the site and you just bounced off. But if somebody starts sort of dedicating their time to the site, they click into an article, they start reading. So in this case, let's say they Googled a certain topic, like filling skill gaps. They Google that topic. My Google Assistant is talking to me now. That's going to happen tons in this podcast, by the way, or in this Twitch stream, by the way, and it happens in the podcast a fair bit as well. So what's going to happen is you're fixing skill gaps, and somebody might come in and be like, oh, what's this? If they don't know who we are, they're probably not going to press play. They're going to see that we're available on all these different services. This may or may not make it to the cut. This is called the availability bar. We've talked tons about the design language of this. Mike and I have. This is just for convenience as a little tangent. So if you click on the RSS, it takes you right to the episode, not just to the RSS. That's what we're hoping for. But again, that might be a bit too much running around. But anyway. So here's our show notes. So somebody might read the show notes, be interested, probably not going to comment because they're new. They're probably going to scroll up and then they might click play. They might not have the time at the moment to listen to an episode. And so someone comes in, they read through here, they read, and they might be interested, they might skim through it, and if they're interested, they might click on one of these. And that's where you kind of have the gotcha for the user, where now they're no longer a bounce, they're a person that stayed and read, so they're already not a bounce, and now you're going to be clicking in to one of these, or they're going to have them clicking into one of these, and now it's sort of like the gotcha, and now their time is sort of invested in your site, and they're going to more than likely remember you better. Now, obviously, there's tons of sites out there and everything else, so this isn't like the 90s where that was their one website they checked out all week. So this isn't like the tried and true only way to get them to remember you, but it is a way to sort of get them to go to each page. And to be totally blunt, it's also a way to get them to see more ads and to monetize your site a little more as well. But it's also not nefarious. It's like if they are interested in this headline and they click it, then they're interested. So I'm just going to zoom out and go on to the next page. That's it. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to close this. Do we need to close it or can we just keep it? I don't know how photos work. So now we're going to click here. I'm going to warn you right now, this app might crash. I opened this a couple times and 2 out of the 4 times I double clicked on this guy, it crashed. So we're going to see what happens. Click on this. Wait. Okay, it worked. Okay, I figured as much. I figured maybe it loaded it into RAM now or something because I've done it a couple of times, but I just want to make sure. Okay, and we can go back and forth. Perfect. Okay, here is the prototype. So here is obviously the quote-unquote real version of the wireframe. Now, here is the big difference, right? This looks already way different because it has color, because it has images, because it has a real world look, if you will. So if I zoom in and I go into here, you can see immediately that this is a more modern styled navbar than what we had on our thing here. So I'm just going to go back. Here we go. So you can see that this is sort of like that stacked design. So with a client, okay, if we bring it into the client verse, with a client, they're not going to understand why the navbar was changed. But because this is a project for Mike and I, we know why it's changed. And the reason why this is important is because I think that people try to uphold the same standard with themselves and with clients. And that's great if you're trying to get practice for doing work for clients, but it's not great for time. And because I know how to, because I built this in Adobe XD, I know how to build that old wireframe one in Adobe XD, and I just hated it. I probably actually did, this was built in 2019, but because I know that I don't want that the instant I put it into my prototype. I can just change it, and Mike's gonna look and be like, "Oh yeah, that looks like a better nav bar," and he's not gonna say anything, or he might be like, "Oh, this is a different one. I guess this is another one of his designs." Like, he is in the lingo, he knows what's going on, and that's sort of really critical. So anyway, we'll scroll down. So we'll go through the prototypes probably pretty quick. So obviously, there's our new nav bar. We may actually modernize this again, but this is way better than the wireframe that we had. We're going to scroll down, and here's your 4. So here's your 1, 2, 3, 4. That's your 4. That's sort of like that design language again. That's sort of like bookmarkable. Someone bookmarks this, they show up, they read these 4. If they're already caught up on the site, they go, "Oh, okay, I'm good to go," and you leave. Now, you actually might say that, well, you're kind of encouraging bouncing at that point, and we are-ish, but only for people that have already checked us out. So we're trying to offer people value without them having to stay there. And it's a weird balance, and it's a balance that is a struggle for everyone that makes websites, and it's going to be kind of relying on us looking at analytics and or changing things as we go and or trends in the world of how we sort of prevent users from bouncing but allow them to have value quickly. It's a little bit of a tug of war, so just a little FYI there. So here, real simple, here's the community spotlight. Actually, Cosworth is the username of someone that joined our Discord server very early. So if you're listening, Cosworth, hello. But yeah, so here's an example of the community spotlight. You know, somebody made, like, hypothetically, these are all just fake, obviously, but somebody made, you know, this PodQuest or whatever. Somebody made this thing. So these are just images that I just pulled randomly from the web, because this is just solely for us, you know, envisioning what's going on. Now, you might say, okay, that these colors are horrendous. Now, I am like 50-50, but the reason why they're so bold and big and stand out is because, first of all, we want people to read it. Second of all, this is sort of a reminder to me, and this is just sort of something that I do for myself, is when something's bold and bright and sort of stands out when it could or could not, it's because it's reminding me something. And what this is there as sort of a visual reminder for myself is that in Webflow, I want these categories to be changeable. So if we say have a bunch of blog posts where the thumbnail just really doesn't work with this green, right? Maybe it worked in the past, but just really doesn't for the latest 10 posts or something. Someone in Webflow with the editor, they can just go in and change the color. We're going to make sure that that's a user settable setting rather than have it be something where you have to call, like, this isn't a client situation, but a client would, if this was a client site, would have to call me to get them to change it. They're going to be able to change it. And this is something where you have to also keep in mind where clients are oftentimes going to have that type of reaction to things. They're going to want to change things on the fly, or this is something where they would want to, like, mess around with. Might be like, oh, maybe that'll look good in orange, and then they'll be like, I don't like it. So instead of you having 2 calls, that's sort of the idea behind this. Okay, so scroll down. Obviously, real easy. These are all fake titles and stuff like that. Now, this is showing off a very critical thing as well. So I want to show this off. So we have this via CSS Tricks and via Canada.ca. This is because, as we've said several times in the podcast, Mike and I are very busy, and we have trouble sort of keeping up with writing content. And Mike and I can't be learning new tech every single day, or, you know, writing a new tutorial every single day. But we do know that there are tons and tons of good articles out there on the web. And so we're going to be sharing other people's articles on this site, obviously giving them the proper credit, and, you know, clicking it will take them either to our thoughts with a link to the article or take it directly to the person. So clicking this might take you to our thoughts and be like, hey, we really loved this thing by CSS Tricks. You guys really got to check it out, and click the button. Or it'll be, if we don't want to put our own thoughts, it'll be like you click here and it just takes you directly there. We're not sure. We'll probably end up doing the click and it just takes you directly there approach first. But this is just one of the sort of tech demos that I'm making sure I cover in my prototypes here. So we're just going to zoom out. And we're going to go, oh, and also I added a footer. So I didn't have a footer in the wireframes, and again, we weren't doing it for a client, so it didn't matter. But for a client, you should probably have all the components that you can in your wireframe so that they don't get confused, especially if you're giving them both. They might be like, why is this here or not on the wireframe? You know, it's going to confuse them because they're not in the industry. Moving on to the next page, very, very simple. I don't even need to zoom in on this one. Very, very simple. Here's the blog collection, articles collection, exactly the same as it is virtually with some color, basically. Again, same type of thing. Very, very simple. Actually, I want to go back really quick, really quick, and I'm just going to zoom in here, and I just made up, again, these are all just made up things via Mac rumors. You, in your prototypes and in your wireframes, you definitely want to have a demo of each thing you're going to do. So because we are going to have these third-party links, I want to be able to show that off on this page to just show people like, hey, this is what it looks like. And I don't have any of like the, by me or by Mike here anywhere, because if I click into the next page, and get out of here with your easy editing, I just put like by the author name. So it's like just indicative, and this by will change to like a via, like VIA. So this is very easy. Hero image, ads, whatever, moving in. Probably not that many ads in that short of a space, but again, more or less a tech demo. Here's the podcast idea. So same thing as before, not going to, touch on it too much again. Player, the four latest, then the archive with the older episodes, easy enough. Now, as you can see, this is it. Like, I've only done 4. There was 8 and there was 4. Again, that is a time-saving measure because Mike and I generally know, like, here's a rich text page, right? Here's the media player. Here's this type of stuff. And so it's very easy for us to sort of extrapolate without even really saying anything. Mike and I like together. He just knows that the wireframe for the full podcast page just didn't make it into prototype because he knows it's going to be more or less this page, possibly with an inline ad, and like this instead of a hero. So it's just a time saving measure when you're working on your own projects. If you're a person that likes to just do the same thing like you do for clients, absolutely do that. If you're a person who's practicing for clients and wants to keep the same sort of standard, absolutely keep doing it. But for Mike and I, it's just, time is money, quite literally, for everybody. And so as a result of time being money, this is why we're doing it like this. Okay, so that kind of ends our review, I guess, of the prototypes and of the wireframes. And now we can sort of just jump right into Webflow. So I have never, full confession, never designed anything in Webflow right from scratch. It's always had a template there or something. So this is going to be clunky for me. It's going to be a discovery process, but I'm also familiar with Webflow. So it's also going to be a familiar, clunky experience, if that makes sense. So all I've done here is I've just straight up made a project. It's just called HTML all the things. I haven't paid for anything yet. It's in the free tier, so we have some things locked out. I'll show you what I mean. Scroll down here. Like, again, it'd be much nicer with a scroll wheel, which I'll hopefully have for the next stream. But see, like file upload, you need to update your plan, as well as the embed. But for the most part, we have most of the tools here, and this is just a blank slate. There's no other pages. There's no navigator. There's some utility pages. So I'll just sort of do, I guess, for anyone who hasn't used Webflow before, I'll sort of do a tour. So I don't know the official names of the panes and that type of thing, but you'll kind of get where I'm at. So on the left-hand bar here with all these tools and stuff, these are sort of the high-level tools, if you will. These are sort of the things that you use to add elements, to change things, to view what's on the page and that type of thing. And then on the right over here, this is sort of how you adjust things. So I'm going to go through. So the first button here is the add button. I like how every time I go live, my mouse just likes to bounce all the way to the top all the time. Weird. So we go to add, click on add. And this is literally where you just add the different elements. You add sections, containers, grids. There's different categories here, basic, typography, all that type of stuff. There's a CMS. Here's, media. You want to have animation. You want to have an image. You want to have video. You want to have YouTube. You want to have all that. Your form. So if you want to have a form block is where you put all your form elements inside. So you say, oh, this is my contact us form, and then you put all your stuff in there. Here's, your submit button, your reCAPTCHAs, all that stuff that go inside of your form block. Here's your components. So your components are very much like, here's your background video, a drop down, an embed. Here's your lightbox, your nav bar, which we'll be touching on, of course. Your nav bar is one of those components where it's sort of Webflow standard rather than web standard. So I'll touch on that. So with Webflow, the biggest thing about it is the fact that you're using your HTML and your UI development skills actually to the max here. This isn't something where I'm clicking and dragging and just easily dropping things in. There are moments like that, of course, but that isn't the case here in Webflow. In Webflow, you need to know, what you're doing. And so if you drop something in, you have to know, do I want it to be display flex? Do I want it to be display grid, inline block, all the rest of it, display none? Here's my paddings. Here's my margins. And so you need to know, without typing in the properties, you need to know all this stuff. You need to know, I needed to change the alignment. I need to change the style. I need to make the position. I can't. I only have this selected, so some of this stuff's grayed out, but I need to change the float. I need to go into the position. You're going to use all that knowledge. But with something like the nav bar will kind of self-collapse into like a navicon. And so that's one of those things where Webflow just made it easy for us, where we don't have to build that out. So, same thing with the tabs sort of system. You could, as far as I know, although I haven't tried it because it already exists, but as far as I know, you could just build out a tab system if you wanted in Webflow. But you wouldn't, because they just made it easy for us. Same with the slider as well. They just, why would you do that? Because they just made it easy for us. And so that's just sort of where we stand on that. So, next thing here's our navigator. So this is going to show all the different things that are in our page. So for example, if I just click here on the body and I drop in a div, I just clicked, it just drops the div in the body. I click into here and it shows, here's the body, that's your sort of default thing, and then here's the div. It'll show all this stuff. My audio is dropping every once in a while. It's not too bad though. I noticed that it said I was offline for a split second, and I don't know why that is. I'm not sure. I don't know. I'm going to push through. Okay. So here's the body. If it gets bad, please let me know. If it gets to the point where it's actually hindering the talking, then let me know. Okay. So here's the body, and inside the body we have a div, and these will actually nest, right? So if we click into this div, and you want to add another div block, because as you know, with dev, you're constantly nesting things. So as you can see, here's the div block, rather, and here's this little chevron. You click in there, and there's your nested guy. And you can go in, and you can, delete that guy, delete this guy. You can go in here, and you can just delete all this, and it just gets rid of all of it right there. Really, really simple. So this obviously gets massive, and it gets filled, and it gets, there's nested stuff and everything else. But what's great about it is I can take the nested stuff of one div and drag it out and drag it back a level so it's not nested anymore, or nested in a different div and that type of thing. Going into the pages. So obviously you have your home page. This is the default page. Like I said, I just selected a blank project. Here's your home page. Tons of stuff in here. If you have a bunch of pages, which I'm sure a ton of sites will, they will have, you can go up here and you can search. You can also add folders. Now, what's interesting about folders is like a subsection. It's actually a subsection in the actual website. So it's like a subdirectory, if you will. So for example, it'd be if we want to put all our podcast episodes into /podcast, that's we had a bunch of static pages. You would add a folder, call it podcast, and then put all the podcast pages in there. And then the website would be htmlthings.com/podcast/ and then the page. So that's what the folders do. Utility pages are just that. They're utility pages. Actually, Mike, I was just thinking, just on a random note there, talking to the chat. I wonder if it's Twitch that was having the issue, because I know that I had trouble saving some stuff earlier and stuff like that, because I'm noticing that my player is kind of dipping and that type of thing, but my internet doesn't seem to be doing that. Maybe it could be me, but I'm just wondering whether it's just Twitch having little hiccups, because I was having I wasn't getting my code and stuff like that just for a brief moment, and then I just kind of waited a couple minutes and it worked. So maybe Twitch is just having a fit here and there. Who knows? Okay, so down here, utility pages. We're probably gonna end up using the password page. Click on the password here. Obviously generic, really, really generic password page. This is for password protected pages. You can go and you can change this as needed. So if you had a page that was specific for an event that you were going to, so you were going to host a webinar, and you just needed some low key security of hey, when you get to the webinar, I'm going to hand out brochures with the password, but if like someone breaks in, who cares kind of thing. But it's just, adds a little bit of exclusivity. You could do that, absolutely. And this is the password page that they'll be presented with. In addition to that, obviously, password protecting things for when they're under construction, so that if someone comes here, Google will just see the password and then out the door it kind of goes. Obviously, you can tell it, you can discourage the indexing of the pages as well. But this is just sort of a way to say, hey, no one in here, but it's like, again, it's low key security. It's just sort of like, well, if someone broke in, I guess they saw my partially completed site, or I guess they saw my exclusive content, oh well. So just a little note there. And then your 404 page, of course, if somebody is trying to find something that doesn't exist, this is obviously extremely generic, and you can do whatever you want with this. Some people will, pull people into their blog. Some people will pull people into their blog. Some people will pull people into, whatever it is that they want. You can pull people into different pages. You can pull people into your podcast. You can just have a separate, a big old 404 page, and just say like, hey, page not found, but we think you'd like this, and that type of thing. So that ends that sort of piece there. The e-commerce pages, obviously, e-commerce, very simple. I've actually never used e-commerce on Webflow, although I've seen it, and it seems extremely easy. And if we need it, we'll certainly get that. And CMS collection pages. So we'll absolutely be doing this once we get a CMS installed. So in our case, we would have to go with the $20 a month plan for the time being. That's the monthly price. I don't know whether we're going to go annual or monthly, but just an FYI to people about the cost. In our case, because we're going to have quite a few items in our CMS as well. But a CMS collection page is just like that article page. So a CMS collection page will be like, let's say I make a collection, which I make here. I make a collection called podcast, and then I make a collection page. The collection page will be this thing. So it won't be this, it'll be this. So I make a collection, and these are going to be what each individual page is. And so the CMS will pull in from it, and you'll see that in a bit here. So you'll make blanks in the CMS. Like you'll make blanks like the title, the episode number. You'll make the rich text area, and then that'll get pulled into the collection page, and then you just say like, oh, pull in the current collections this, pull in the current collections this, and this, and this. It's really easy. It's a little hard to explain just with words, but we'll get into that. But that's what all this will show. It'll say like podcast pages, article pages, that, and they're all styled the same. So when you change one blog post's page, it will change them all in that same way, including old ones. Here is the CMS. Now, the CMS, obviously, is a CMS. Basically, you make the things where it's a content management system, for those of you who don't know. And basically, it allows you and your users to easily add things. Now, in Webflow, they call them collaborators. Collaborators are the people that get access to not this. This is called the designer. They get access to the editor. The editor is a very slimmed down version where they can sort of visually edit text. Like if they see a heading, and me and the designer have allowed them to edit that, because you can block that actually. They can, hover over the title, for example. Click, there's a little pencil icon, I believe, and they can go and they can change it. They also have access to the CMS, so they can add new blog posts, add new, whatever they need to add. They can add new categories, add new everything. So CMS collections are those type of things, and we will show those in the future as well. Also, here is the Discover the Power of Webflow CMS collection. So this is just a little tidbit. Anyone who's interested in Webflow, they do have Webflow University. Very good tutorials. This is how I started. My first website in Webflow was very clunky, and I fixed it up since then. And my second one was even better, and my third one is even better. Webflow, whereas you might think it's just a easy to use editor, is actually really in depth and really well put together. And so, it has its problems like everything else, and it has its limitations like everything else. But in terms of a web kind of creator, from a person who is more technical like me, but isn't a super big coder, it's sort of the perfect balance. E-commerce, again, yeah, we don't have that. Like, we don't need that e-commerce. We would need to change our project and do an e-commerce thing, and we're just not going to do that. Here's all your media. Haven't actually uploaded anything yet, but here's all our media. You can see all the assets, just the images, just the documents, just the Lottie. That's that for that animation thing. I hope I'm saying that right, but regardless of which, this is where you see it. One big thing with Webflow, and we've hit this a few times, and I really want to stress this, is Webflow is really good. Like the websites are delivered via a CDN, content delivery network. They load fast. They're great that way, okay? But for whatever reason, they don't allow like really big images to be uploaded and or really big PDF. I believe, don't quote me, I believe the PDFs are limited at 10 meg. And I believe that the what is it? The videos are I want to say they're limited to 27 megs. Please check those limits before you get in. I know that we've hit a couple of problems where we try to go and we build the customer's whole site out, and then they're like, "Hey, I can't upload my PDF. I need to put this on my page." And we go and we try to upload. They try to upload it, and bam, they're stuck. They can't do anything, and like we're stuck. And so luckily we have other clients on other infrastructures, so we have file stores that we can use, but that's obviously not as convenient, and they can't use them. We have to use them and then link it in. It's a bit of a pain, but that's just the way that is. Here's the settings. Webflow does do backups. You can make specific backups if you press, I believe it's Control-Shift-S. We don't have anything there, so I'm not gonna do it right now. But a little pop-up will show up, and you can name your backup. It makes backups at a certain interval. I'm not sure when it is, but it does make it as you go. But if you had something where you're like, hey, I'm about to like rip apart a page that I haven't touched in 6 months, I could break the whole freaking site. Like I could accidentally break a class or something. I want to make sure I save this so that if I do it and it's a disaster, I can just go back. That's what that's for. Control-Shift-S. You say saving before change to blog, and then you could easily come in and search for that here. Moving on here, we also have these tools. Now, I don't really use these tools too much. These are to hide empty elements and to, show like a light guide overlay, and to I don't really use these. This one would be kind of interesting. So for example, if you were to go to like the home page, and we can't add it yet because we haven't bought the plan, but for example, if you bought like this, or not bought, but if you place this embed, because like it's an embed, it could just show like it'll oftentimes just show a generic square and say, you've embedded something here type of thing. And usually an embed is like a piece of code that you would write, like some JS or something. It won't render in the designer because the designer won't run the JS for security reasons and that type of thing. So because of that, it'll be a visual element, and if it's like right at the top, it's going to look really weird because you're going to be like, why is there this big block? But the actual users don't see that, and that's sort of like why you would use that sort of control down there. There's also video tutorials. Like I said, there's the Webflow University. You can go. They have like full courses on some stuff and that type of thing. They also just have like straight up, like I just look up the specific things I need. Like, hey, how do I change this in collections? And it works. There's also this guy here, find anything. There's a big. I don't use that. And here is another section here where you can. If I clicked into a div, so I'll just show that again. If I go and I click into a div, and then I make sure I select that div, and I want to embed another div in there. Div in a div. See, now I've selected that div in a div. It'll show me like, hey, look, you've selected the div in a div. But if I want to select the parent, I can click on that, and I select the parent. What changes is right here. So if I want to change that div block to say like just have something in it. So like let's just remove the embedded div. Go in here and put in a text block and say like hello world, as we do. And there it is. Obviously just top left, as it would be with any sort of HTML CSS sort of setup by default. But here's where it comes in. So now I've selected the text box. You can see down here the text block, and you can see I've selected the text block down here. So this is a good way to demo the right side. So the right hand side here has all your controls. We have no class on this right now because we haven't actually set anything other than the standard, right? Nothing's been changed. But if let's say we should select the class name, but let's just say we forget and we want it to have a little bit of margin on the top. So we just say we apply a 10 margin. It will automatically give it a text block class, and if we do another one, it'll automatically make it text block 2. Easy enough. In here as well, you can do the sizes and the widths and that type of thing. You can obviously set this in here. You can set the units, so whether you want it to be percent, EM, VW, VH, all the rest of it. The min width, the max height, all that. You have your overflow controls. See why the CSS knowledge is crucial with Webflow. You have your CSS knowledge. You have your fit. Does it fill? Does it contain? Does it do whatever? And as you can see here, as I'm clicking into stuff, it turns blue. But I didn't change it, so it gets rid of that. The reason why it does that is because it's saying that this particular, what I have selected here is a text block, and I've selected the text block class. So let's just rename that class. We'll just call this the test text block. Okay, so here's our test text block. Okay, I'm just going to call it the test block for now. We have this selected, and you can see that that is what it's still showing this as blue. If I click this and just click reset, it resets it to the default. So it's what has been changed by this. So let's hypothetically say, okay, you do 10, and then you want to add a combo class, as we all do, right? You add like classes, you change the classes. So let's hypothetically say you want to do this, and you want to call this block 1. See, now you're creating a new combo class. Now you have 2 selectors. See how that's orange now? That's because we have selected block 1 in this particular combo class, and that's not what's changing this, right? If I wanted to say change the bottom to 10, okay, you can see that this combo class adds this. This is what this exact combo adds. It's what's in blue. If I go and I select, I just want to see the text block, you can see that this has been crossed out. It's saying this here doesn't apply this. It does apply this, though. That's why it's blue. But together, it does this. And so what this helps like kind of fix is you getting into the sort of the class hell, if you will, where you constantly add classes to fix things. Because like as things get super complex, as things get totally out of control on every site they do, you might be like, man, I got to change this top margin. I don't know what the heck's going on here. So then you just add another class called like, top margin, and then you have like another one called like top margin big, and like you keep adding and adding and adding. But what this allows you to do is it allows you to click on this and just kind of calmly go through and say, okay, we know the block 1's adding this, it's not adding this. Okay, what's back one? And you click here, and like I said, there's a bunch of these, and there's breakpoints. You can see that this thing here is using the breakpoint for the laptop, and so it's using this sort of like computer breakpoint, and that. This list gets massive as you add things, as you add breakpoints. It gets absolutely massive. It gets confusing. Like I get confused in this menu, and it's confusing without the guide. So like, what's great about it is Webflow's added a tool to sort of easily and visually see what each class is doing individually in a complex situation. And even with their help, it's confusing. So it's great to have some help, is what I'm saying. Okay, so there's that, really simple. Go down here again. It'd be really nice to have a scroll bar right now. Down here, change the fonts. Like these are all orange because they're just default. Like they're probably applied to the body actually, more than likely. I don't actually know. Let's see here. No, I think they're just default. That's why they're orange. So they're just sort of like default across Webflow. As far as I know, you scroll down, you can change the colors and stuff like that. You can also like set custom colors. So you can see here, like there's already a set color. But like if we were going to be making a hat, like, I don't know, a hat red. Let's just say we had red in our brand. We don't, but let's just say we did. We could say like create. And so it created that. So what we can do is we're going to edit that. And we're going to make it just like literally red. So FF0000, enter. There's our hat red. So we save it. And so now see that's identified as hat red. And so now in the future, see it's saying block 1's applying this. We can also just reset it and it will go back to, as you can see, it resets to body all pages. That's sort of like a generic selector. That's why these are all orange. There's more type options if you want. You can, this kind of looks lame. It's just hello world, but this kind of looks lame in just that. So you can make them all, capitals. You can do all this sort of stuff like there. You can do the break. So you want to, no wrap, pre-wrap. You want to break spaces. You want to have all that type of stuff. You have the direction as well. So if you change the direction, now it's on the right hand side. Change the direction, now it's on the left hand side. You can reset it just so that it's at the default. Images, so you can have images and gradients, and you can have all kinds of layers here. So you can go in, you can say like, we want to have, let's just say it's a gradient, and we want to have it to be like the wings up red, or the hat red to like, let's see here, to to black. So you can see you have 2 layers, and you can. The great part about this is they're in just that layer. So you can click here, and you click on there. See, like you can go back and forth, and you can change these. You can change which one is showing up on top of one another. And if one like was going into a transparency, you could so easily come in and have like an image underneath a gradient underneath a whatever, and you're not playing with those annoying properties in CSS where you're trying to remember what's what, and you're trying to type in the different pieces, and you're trying to think, what coordinate did I change the transparency to, and all this. It's all right here, and you can easily just junk the different layers, or you could just hide them. You just hide that layer there. You can hide that layer, so if you're just trying to like troubleshoot and you're like, which one is this? And this, this gets complex, and I'm sure we're gonna have problems, building the hat site, and like we'll see it. Here's just, if you just want to have generic color. So like, I'll just show a couple other ones here. Like, okay, so here's image. You have your full control here. Your position, your size, your cover, your contain, your tile, your fixed, your whatever. You have the linear gradient. You have the radial gradient. You have the color overlay. The color overlay is great. So as you can see, it's already at just RGBA. It's just black with 0.5 opacity. This is great for applying it to images. So like I said, the BG mask, as I call it, the background mask, to partially cover images, so you can put text on top. It's super useful like that. And then, like I said, you can just straight up just set this to like the hat red if you want. And these take precedent, but if you don't like that, you just want to like remove all this crap. See, look, now that takes precedent. And so that's why that is super that's why that's like super helpful and critical, and it's just like a nicer way to do it while still using your CSS skills. You scroll down here into borders, and borders, same thing. You want to do each corner, go for it. The border radius, rather. You want to do all corners, go for it. That's normally what you use. You can go in and you can literally change the borders. So you can go in and you can change, the top border, the right border, the left border, the bottom border. You can change the width of each. The style, the dots, the dashes, the solid, or you just don't want to show it. How wide they are. So easy. You can go in and change the opacity of the overall elements. You can go in and, you can make it fade away or come back or whatever, and then you can just reset it back to normal. Box shadows, same thing. This is where you start kind of getting into the CSS weeds here. You can come in here and you can set the distance of your box shadow. The color. You can, so let's just, set it to like this yellow here. Now this is obviously this just looks horrible, but we set it to this yellow here. Oh, wait, maybe we can't. Oh, wait. There we go. Okay. So we set it to this yellow here. You can see just a really, there's a really horrible yellow showing up there, but you can see that this is the outer shadow, and you can change the angle of like where the light is effectively falling to, catch that shadow, an inside shadow, an outside shadow, your blur, your distance, your size, your inside, all of that stuff, all right here. Super easy. 2D and 3D transformations. This is another thing. So you can come in and you get to choose the origin, the left and the right, or the left and the top property. If you want to have the back face be visible or hidden, that's for when you if you wanted to make the page, like your page, like an actual sheet of paper. I mean, hypothetically, I've never really seen this done, but you could do it. You could just flip the page. So you could make the back face of the actual page, like as if it was a piece of paper. You know how you can write on the front side and then right on the back. You can make it so that back side's invisible if it flips around, or make it visible so you could actually have your page be like a piece of paper flipping back and forth. You could do that. The children perspective. Now I haven't dove into the weeds too much on here, so I'm definitely rusty on there. So maybe we'll try some transformations and some animations and stuff like that when we start the hat site. Transitions, same type of deal. You get to choose, what's the easing, how long, and what the type is. Is it are you transitioning the width? Are you transitioning the font color, the font size, whatever else, the Z index? You can do that, and you can have it be super easy, again, without you being like, where's that thing? Really, really easy. Filters, same type of thing. I haven't actually used filters at all on here. So again, this is gonna be a little bit of exploring. We're gonna mess around with this stuff. But do you want it to blur? Do you want the brightness, the hue to rotate? Those type of things. I assume these are used for pictures. Like again, I haven't really touched it. So maybe this is for like the Gaussian blur type of thing, so that we don't have to. Like what I used to always do is just go into Photoshop or whatever that free one is. I forget what it's called, the open source one. But you go into that image editor and you can change it to Gaussian blur and those type of things. And then also at the bottom, yeah, there you go, Mike. Mike's got it. Then you also got a, it's called GIMP, but it's an acronym, so everyone simmer down. It's called like the GNU like image manipulation program, I think it is. So that's what that's called. But here's the cursor, and you can change, what do you want it to be? Do you want it to be this cell, this crosshair, this movement thing? So you can kind of like really, like, this is an editor, remember, like when I'm talking about the first panel on the editor, like, look at this. You have 4 panels here. So you go here, and here's where you kind of like have some settings. So you can have some custom attributes. So you could say, you know, if you installed something specific, if you installed something like, I don't remember exactly how Font Awesome does their spinners, but I think it's sort of something like they add a custom attribute. This is absolutely not accurate, but if you had a custom attribute, like, you know how you put like class equals whatever, you could put like, you know, is spin equal true, and this will apply this to that div. And then when in one of your embeds, if you read the spin property or the spin attribute and you read if it's true, you can go in and you can do that, and you can manipulate that with your JS. That's another thing. You can hide certain things from the search results. So you can go in and say like, oh, this is just for visual, or this is just for like, you know, me manipulating the image for some reason, or manipulating the page. And so you can absolutely change that. You know, that's no problem. And collaborators. So like I said, collaborators are the editors of the site. Editors, people who come in. So in other words, you would be the person using the designer, and your client would be the person editing. They're called collaborators. That's the language used by Webflow. You'd give them a collaborator account, and they would use the editor. The editor is a very stripped down, like, they don't get all these controls, obviously. They basically have a point and click, a point and edit, and they can go in and they can change a bunch of stuff. They also get the CMS, where they can, you know, add a blog post and change the categories and everything else that you've allowed. So I'm allowing collaborators to edit this item. So if you went in the editor, you could hover over this, click the little icon, and change the hello world text. But if I didn't want them to ever touch this because, like, you know, we just made it pixel perfect, you could just tell them, you know, that's it. You can't have that. Obviously, I missed at the top here. You can just have an ID straight up. So obviously, that's really great for you addressing things in JS. You know, if you want to have put an embed at the bottom, or there's a generic in the project. I'm not going to show it because I'm not sure exactly where it is anymore. I haven't used it in a while. But you can put like kind of generic per project head code, or like right before, like at the end of the body code. And so if you want the same script to run on each page, that it might be, you know, talking or addressing an ID. And so this is where you would put this. You'd be like, you know, this is my ID, and then you'd be able to easily identify it. And so that's really easy that way. Here's the style manager. Full disclosure, never use this. Don't even know really what it is. As far as I can see, you can clean it up, it looks like. So maybe this is like, oh, I see. I suppose you can. Oh, because I have this selected. Yeah, no idea. So just an FYI. I've never used this before. Don't know what the style manager does. One of those learning things. No big deal. Now here's where sort of Webflow seems to shine. If you've been a proponent of Webflow, interested in Webflow, their homepage in the last 2-ish years has really changed a lot. And I remember when I first came here, they were really showing off their interactions. And I believe it was I joined right around the time of Interactions 2.0. So this is, as far as I know, God knows whether it's gone up. Yeah, this is Keon. This is the Webflow. I don't know if I talked about it in episode 100, but if I called it Webflow, this is Webflow. This is the exact same one. There's only we only use one project called Webflow, but it has gone through like a lot of iterations and a lot of changes even since I've been here. But this is where like CSS kind of drops off the map for me, and not in terms of like I can't do it or like I don't want to learn it, but it's like I hate having things like get detected on like scroll, and like I know, like, you know, maybe you'll need some JS in there too, but I just it gets all confused, and I don't know what you know, it's just a pet peeve. It's like, where's that coordinate? Like, where's this SVG rendering? Like, what is going on here? And this is where it all fixes. So you have element triggers, page triggers. So, you know, when you scroll, when the page is scrolling, what do you want to happen? Do you want like sparkles to appear? When the page has been scrolled, so it's no longer at its default position, do you want the nav bar to shrink? That's, we're going to be touching on that. I've dove into the weeds a little bit on these, but I haven't, not too much. So we're just going to be a little bit of that. But yeah, Keon, yeah. So I think we started using Webflow in 2018, I believe. And I believe that's right. I think it was 2018. And we've been using it ever since. Like, it's just been one of those tools where if somebody needs something as an emergency, like I've even said to people, if there was like an emergency for some reason and I was available and you needed a quick site up, like a blog, and I mean like a blog, like a full blog up in like 3 hours, with Webflow, I can do it for you. I can grab you a template really quick and I can really quickly spin some other stuff up. Now, yes, you might say I can do that with WordPress. I understand that. I'm not fiddling with FTP. In an emergency situation like that, I'm going right to Webflow. We're buying the plan for a couple months or whatever it is, or annual, whatever we need it for, and I can easily spin it up. And then you can get into the weeds, which is great. So you can get into the weeds later. Now the person can blog, and I can quickly, over the next weeks, I can fix it up. But to get back from the tangent here, page triggers. So when the mouse moves in the viewport. So it will animate while the mouse moves over the viewport along the X or Y axis, no touch support. So this is specifically, like I said, for mouse. So it's like if you want something following your mouse. No worry, Keon. Tangents are exactly what we want, especially on stream, because I'm gonna miss things, and absolutely. No, 100%. Yeah, ask away. That's exactly what these streams are for. 100%. So mouse moves, if you wanted something, these are ridiculous things, but if you wanted something following your mouse, this is sort of where you would use it. If you want, while page is scrolling, while it's still being actively, going down the page, you can have like some crazy thing. And that's why I brought up the early Webflow sites, is because they had crazy animations, cubes flying in, and like you were scrolling through what looked like kind of like a PowerPoint, but then it would like flip over and like all this crazy stuff, and it changed and changed and changed. As far as I remember, all that stuff all was built in Webflow, so it's really critical that way. Page load, obviously when the page loads, once it's when it starts or finishes loading, it'll fire this thing off, so you can have it so it'll hide something, show something, whatever it is. And then page scrolled, we've already gone through. An element trigger is where things really get in, kind of come to fruition. So sites are, generally static. You go in and you could take a look at our design here, and sites are really generally static. And so these are just blocks kind of pasted or glued onto a page, if you will, if you're thinking about it in an analog sense. But in reality, you can make this super nice in the digital way. And a way you can do that is just little touches. So as you say scroll down, let me just go back to here. So if as you're mousing over stuff, or as things are scrolling into view, just a slight little from 50% opacity to 100, or from 0 to 100, just a nice little gradual, or it kind of flies in and shows up. Just gradual things that you're not going to remember, per se. The users aren't going to say, "Whoa, did you see that animation?" But it's just a nice little premium feeling. And as you go through and you add these to your pages, and if you go between a page that does and doesn't have these, absolutely you're going to notice, you're going to say wow, this page kind of feels flat. And you won't be able to really put your finger on it unless you're the person that was designing it, type of thing. Scroll into view, just touched on that while scrolling in view. So this is a continuous interaction. That's what these little plus arrows are for. I believe there's some here as well in the page. Yeah, so that's what these are. These are continuous. Continuous meaning, for example, with that mouse trigger, as you're scrolling through, this is continuous, and it just keeps fire, 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 fire. So you have to watch it, kind of thing, because you don't want to just overwhelm the browser, type of thing. And then there's the legacy interactions. Here's the old way that they used to do it. You used to be able to just say what's the name of my interaction, and these are obviously very old. What's the trigger and that type of thing. This is the old way to do it. Here's the new way to do it. Takes a little bit to get used to. Absolutely, I mess it up all the time. But I mess it up a lot less than I do the real CSS ones, so that's for sure. And then of course, the top here. So this is actually new. So these are larger, newish. So I think a month to 3 months, something like that, because I get a lot of Webflow news and stuff into my feed. But here's the large break. So you can add larger breakpoints. As you can see, this breakpoint, it's 1624. You can also change it or whatever. This is just you can change the canvas and the scale, but you can add larger breakpoints for your ultra wides and those type of things. But here's your desktop sort of layout, and this is your base breakpoint. You can have your tablet, you can have your phone, but landscape. What's weird about the phone on landscape is that it's phone on landscape in portrait. which is a little bit strange. I understand that it's like the width. I understand like what they're doing. It's like they're just showing like an exaggerated thing, and a person would, be cut off at some point here and be scrolled. It just looks a little bit strange to me. I always kind of figured it'd be nice to have almost like exactly what would be in a device frame, but to each their own. It doesn't really hinder anything. And then right here, of course, phone in here. And what's really great about these is it tells you what devices these are. So Mike and I, in standard, unless we're asked, we will support down to an iPhone 5 screen, which is, I believe, the same size of an iPhone SE. iPhone 5 SE, I think that's what it's called. So you can go through, and here's these breakpoints. Like it tells you, this is the S9, S9 Plus, S8, S8 Plus, and they go all the way down that list. And this breakpoint, handles this big all the way to this small. And so Mike and I do not support the 240 width. We support, up to here. No, not even there. See, that's NES. We support to here. iPhone 5S, maybe that's it. iPhone 5S, iPhone SE as well. So the small iPhone screens, if you're familiar with iPhones, they kind of went like, super big, even on the small models. And so the SEs are like the small models. This is like original SE as far as I know. iPod Touch as well. So this is sort of like where we cut off, where we stop supporting it. Because I'm not like, I'm not making a blog post with like two words. It's ridiculous. Like it's, it's too small at that point. Obviously, like I said, here's the zoom and that type of thing. Here's the width as well. I haven't played around with this too much. Honestly, just flip through this. And the super nice thing about this is that this is super accurate. Like the view is super accurate for all browsers. Firefox, Chrome, Edge, New Edge, Safari, whatever. It's super accurate for all of them, to the point where, absolutely, you're launching a project, you want to check all the browsers as you normally would, and like actually test through the browsers and like go through and like make sure it works on all of them. But in reality, you're probably just not going to, what am I trying to say here? In reality, in your regular everyday updates, you're not going to have to check all the browsers. But if you do like a brand new project where you push out everything, go out and like check all the browsers as you normally would, and like 99.9% of the time, in my experience, I've had no problems. It looks exactly like it does here. I've had weird problems with a very complex navbar situation where like JS was getting involved and there was a friggin' like something else in there. I can't even remember. But it's just like very easy, very simple. This is just how it is. So, I mean, that's Webflow. I was trying to think if there was another topic. That's kind of Webflow. Here's your publish. You can add a custom domain, of course. You can minimize all this stuff if you want. These are only available if you have a plan. Like I said, I'm on the free project right now. We have just, Webflow gave us a free subdomain. So it's HTML dash all the things. Whatever. Obviously it's not pretty, but it's not supposed to be because it's more or less a test domain, and you could choose what to publish to, and that's basically it. You click publish, and you're good to go. Now there's some other stuff though. You can invite collaborators, like I said. You can also share a read-only link. So this is useful for when you want people to come into the designer actually, but not be able to change anything. So someone can come into the designer. It says, hey, you're viewing a site in the read-only mode, and people can see exactly what you did. And so in the forum, if you're like, I can't get this div to like resize, someone can come in here and they have all the controls, but they just can't change the numbers. And so they can come in and they can check it. And it's just really great that way. There's also, you can actually export. So you can export your code here. You can export your HTML, your CSS, your JS. You can export, but you have to upgrade the plan to do this, obviously. But you can actually, like, this is my ID. See what I mean by this? And see, there's my custom attribute. Here's my div ID. This is all stuff that you can export your code. And what's great about this is, so you could rapidly prototype this on here. And let's say you were using a custom CMS like, I don't know, Typo or Couch CMS or Statamic or something like that. Your designers, realistically, because there are like team plans in that, your designers can design the UI here. You wouldn't have to pay for the Webflow CMS hosting or anything. You may have to pay for just their site hosting plan, depending on how much stuff you use and what elements you need. But, your people can rapid fire sort of prototype on Webflow. You can export the code, give it to the developer, the backend guy. The backend guy goes in and he takes all the content blocks and goes and he he changes like, the title to the actual title. Like he pulls it from the API or pulls it from Satamic or uses Couch or however they're doing it. And so you could have, like I said, rapid prototyping that goes right into production. You could this tool is so quick in terms of my experience with it, and especially if you get good with it, that you could easily rapidly prototype something in an emergency, send it out, and that person could just use the prototype immediately with the CMS. And that's the great thing about it. So yeah, that's sort of my end of Webflow rant. Oh, one other thing actually I want to say is Webflow is very much a website creator. This is really critical, actually. This is a really critical point. I've already mentioned the limitations on file sizes and that type of thing when you upload certain things. There are limitations on Webflow that go beyond that. Now, this is not like a complaint. This is just straight up. For example, Webflow hosts the website even when you pay them. They do not give you a full cPanel. If you're a person who has, shared hosting and you have a cPanel and all the rest of it, and you have, email in there and whatever else you purchase with your hosting plan from HostGator or whoever, you will not get all those controls. This is Webflow for the website. It doesn't do anything else. It doesn't host your email. It doesn't host any of that stuff. If you need to build a web app, this is probably not your tool. Like, you can't, in my experience, well, no. Like, realistically, you would have to, like, start pulling in things from a third-party API and everything. Like, it would be, this is very much like you're building the website. And so you could hypothetically build the web app interface on here. Absolutely, you could build a web app interface on here. But you really can't, like, you can't just add a database of any type. You have to sort of stick with this collections thing, right? So this is sort of like the gated community, if you will, of website creation. It's really good. It's really powerful. It's really expansive. There are things that plug into it. You can do your own custom scripts to expand the functionality. Full disclaimer. I've expanded like functionality with a bunch of unorthodox things that like Webflow shouldn't add as tools. Like I've added clocks to sites, and I've added certain pages have certain border colors under certain circumstance, and I've just controlled that with like really easy JS. And you can absolutely do that in Webflow. Embedding things from the editor specifically, so not the designer, the editor, is particularly cumbersome, and I found out a way to do it. And so there's like, you can expand stuff. Absolutely, you can expand stuff and get things to work. But if you're a person that needs to build out a full web app that's like really data intensive, maybe build maybe don't touch Webflow at all, but maybe go into Webflow, build out the UI, and then give it to your sort of back-end database guy, and then he can use those elements and make them repeatable and do all the rest of it and make it so that that's an interactive piece of content. So I just talked for like an hour and a half. I'm thinking whether or not I should go maybe start the navbar or what I should do. Let's take a look here. What do we have here? What do we have in terms of a navbar? Now, as you can see, I'm hesitating, actually. Excuse me, in terms of like using my bottom taskbar. My taskbar normally, so this is just a streaming profile so that I don't have all my clients' files and everything. You don't want to see their passwords and all the rest of it. But I use like the Windows 98 taskbar still, where with the full titles, and it's really tiny, and there's like these tile things. Like even Windows, like these, I know they've been around since Windows 7. I don't use these things. I don't know how they work hardly. So I apologize in advance if it looks like I am struggling. I'm also struggling to talk now, as I've had an hour and a half of talking, and no water. So that's good. Okay, maybe what we'll do is we'll build out not like with all the icons and everything, because I'm going to have to get like Font Awesome and install like font things and everything else. Which is another whole thing too. Actually, that's another really quick tidbit about Webflow. Actually, I know I know people hate it when I go off about like not the bad things, but limitations. But I think it's really critical that you know the limitations of anything you're using before you jump in. This isn't like WordPress, okay? If you have a client that expands, changes their functionality a lot, like they suddenly want to do surveys, they suddenly want to run contests, and they want to do it on their site, there's no plugin marketplace for this like there is for WordPress. In WordPress, you just try to like go to the plugin market or whatever they call it, and you type in contest, and then you kind of get it. That's not the case here. There is a reference, a list reference to a bunch of different resources and services and things that plug into Webflow, but it is absolutely not like WordPress where you're like, oh, I'll just install the contest plugin and it'll make a new page for me and it'll do whatever it needs to do. That is not what you're looking for. So we do have some clients that do rapidly change their digital strategy because they're big into like that whole like marketing thing where it's like, we need to change the forms, we need to change to this, change to this, change. They need something like WordPress where we can easily and not always custom build something for them. So just a total FYI, this is not WordPress. WordPress still has a place. This certainly has a place. Just, again, an FYI. And realistically, you could build out your UI on here and then plug it into WordPress. And through your own custom, you can customize WordPress. You could make WordPress control the UI you built in Webflow. But I just want to make it totally clear that there's e-commerce here, and there's a bunch of great things, and there's even a site that, or a plugin or a third-party thing, I haven't done much investigation on it, that makes it so that you can make membership sites on Webflow. But I just want to make it totally clear that WordPress is much more extensive, and WordPress effectively has an app store of functionality at your disposal, just through searching through some stuff. Okay, so with that being said, I think what we'll do is I don't have all the media ready. I kind of just wanted to explain now I'm talking about WordPress. Explain Webflow, but I think what we'll do is we'll skeleton it out. I think we'll just skeleton out maybe the first maybe 3 sections here. I don't know if we're gonna get that far, but we'll see what happens. So I don't have my graphics all ready. I usually have all that stuff ready. I prefer to have that stuff because that stuff's just you guys don't need to see me like flipping through my files. But I think what I'll do is I'll just sort of skeleton this out and we'll see what happens. So, and now again, I want to say this. I have hundreds of hours of Webflow experience. I have 0 hours of Webflow experience from scratch, so you're going to have to bear with me. Okay, so first thing we need, obviously, is a nav bar. There is a nav bar component. Where are you? There you are. Okay, here's your nav bar. So nav bar, really easy. Here's your container, and here's your nav bar. So what we want to do is, here's the brand. The brand can just stick there. That's fine. Can you like... the brand is just a link. Okay. And here's the nav menu. So inside of here, we have a container. So there's another thing to talk about too. So a container isn't like a standard thing in CSS. I can't just call like a container suddenly. Container in Webflow is sort of like your readable container, is what Mike and Al oftentimes call it. So as you can see, it leaves a lot of room here and a lot of room here. But the actual like full thing, like the full nav bar, is like all the way across, right? And so it's easy enough. But so it fills out the whole screen, but like this just isn't massive. Like, if you had a super wide screen, although there are breakpoints for those now, but if you had a super wide screen, you don't want your nav link to be like literally like 3 feet to your right or something like that, right? Like that's ridiculous, because some people have those absolutely massive, like U-shaped, like curved, ultra wide, remortgage your house type displays. And so you don't want that. Okay. So, if anyone has any questions, of course, please interrupt me. This is not a lecture. Anyone has any questions, concerns, or anything like that, please hit up the chat. Absolutely. And interrupt me, because I'm just going to start sort of like playing with this, I guess. So for now, I think what we'll do is, take a look at this again. So, we kind of have a container here, and then this kind of stuff seems to be more into here. So I'm not going to use the official container class. I'm going to use my own kind of container. So freaking Freaking navbar. Okay. So we're going to leave this. I oftentimes leave stuff like this because I want this general layout, but I don't want to deal with it. So I'm going to show you how to swap this stuff around. So watch. So we're going to go here, and we're going to drop a div in. And the div, see how it's not inside of this? We're going to drag it over, and it'll pop in there. So now this thing is like doubly high. And we're going to call this our nav bar container. Okay? And we're going to assign this thing a max width just for now. And I said we're going to do everything rough. We're just going to kind of skeleton this out. So we're going to just give this thing a max width of, let's say, like 1,200 pixels, I'd say. And so there it goes there. Now, I'm a proponent of Flexbox on a lot of my stuff, so I'm going to make this flex. I'm going to make this vertical, and make it center like that and center like this. And now here's where I'm going to start dragging things out. So I want that brand. So I'm going to take that, drop that into here. See, now it's inside of there. I'm going to take this nav menu, and I'm going to take that, put that into there, and I'm going to take this menu button. And this menu button is that thing that appears, see here? So what we're going to do is we're going to take that menu button and do it in the same place. I'm just going to take away the container because I don't really need that. And I want this thing to be width of 100% of the page. And with a max width of 1,200. So now we kind of have our content in here, but we want to have like a split background. So what we'll do is like I said, I don't have the colors and everything. I'm going to get like a full palette for the next time. But let's just say, we'll make a hat blue, but it won't be the right color yet. And I don't know, something like that. That's too, a little bit more, like something like that, right? And we'll fix this. So we'll do that, hat blue, and then we'll do like hat gray. Okay. And so hat gray, oh wait, we need to, edit that, and we need to drag this guy onto like here. Something like that. Again, just rough right now. And we'll make this guy blue. And we're going to take this, and we're going to have navbar container. Now, we want there to be effectively two sort of rows here. So we're going to click here, take a look. So we have our top row, which this thing accommodates both. But then we have our top row, and this accommodates the social. And then we have our bottom row, which is like this darker gray. And so we have a hat blue, a hat light gray, and a hat dark gray. And then we have this sort of border in between. So we can make this either like a hole. We can make this like a hole in our nav bar where like this nav is pushing out here, like with a margin or something. Or we can make that actually a border. I think it'll be more controlled if it's a border, and I think it'll be more controlled if it's a top border. So what we're going to do is the entire nav bar is going to have two big, damn this taskbar. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to have a div block come in. Whoa. Okay, now I'm just trying to think of like the best way to do this. Like I said, I don't use Webflow too much because this brand can't really be here anymore. So wait a sec. Well, yeah. So we're gonna take a image, and it'll just give us like a placeholder image, which is nice. So there's our placeholder image. Now this image this brand link, which is now also an image, so basically making an image a link in Webflow terms, can't be like right here. So this guy is gonna have to go all the way. Doesn't necessarily need to go to the top, but it needs to go to the top-ish. And it also needs to go, and we'll probably make it position absolute. I always lose my position thing. There it is, position absolute. So you see how it just like takes it out of the flow of it, and we'll make it go like all the way to the left like that, just to kind of get it out of the way for a second. So here's your navbar container. Now, what respects this? So everything seems to respect this 1200, so maybe we need to change this a bit. Okay, so let's just take a look. So we have our navbar container, we have our nav menu, we have this. Okay, so what we should actually do then is we should use this navbar container but use it differently. We should actually have navbar rows inside. So we're going to have a another one in here, and we're going to call this our navbar row. Okay. And we're going to put this guy is going to always be width 100. Okay. And inside of the navbar row, we're going to have this, and we're going to have this. So there's our navbar container, and there's our navbar container containing the row, and there's where the content sort of ends there. Okay. So then we're going to have, like I said, we're just going to lay this out roughly. So then we have this guy needs to still respect this, but he's not because he's absolute. So we need to go to our navbar container and make him relative, and then take this, and he's... Oh, that's weird. Why is that? Okay. And then he needs to be inside of the container. So he's inside of the container. Okay, so see how he's respecting the width now. Okay, so then we'll take this guy and we'll make this... Whoa, what is going on here? I'm selecting stuff and it ain't selecting stuff. Now that's another thing in Webflow. Sometimes you just got to refresh. I don't know what makes it do it. Something just goes a little bit wonky. I think it might... If I'm being totally blunt, it might not be Webflow. This mouse is a disaster. I think it's double clicking and it's like selecting things in the background. So don't worry, I already have another mouse. I just have to put it together. Okay, or like connect it to the setup. Okay, so we're gonna make this one also a navbar row, and as you can see here, it tells us the existing classes that it thinks we might want to use in this particular context. Brand, navbar. I want a navbar row here, so we have another navbar row, and what we're gonna do is in this navbar row, we are going to add another div, and that div, okay, is going to be our social icon wrapper. Okay, and we might like maybe make it nav or something like that later, but we'll leave it for that. So it'll be a social icon wrapper, and as you can see, this is a CSS class, but we have spaces in it. And in the actual exported code, as far as I know, it'll actually show you, dashes. So it'll make everything lowercase, and then it'll make it so that it's like social dash icon dash wrapper. But since we're using an editor, like this is just sort of like one of those Webflow things where we can quickly and easily just sort of like throw something together. So here's our social icon wrapper, and inside of there, how many icons we got? How many icons? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Whew. Lots of icons. Clicking on the wrong thing now. Icons. Okay, so we want to have icons. So we're gonna do that, and that's like just a blank block. So we're going to click copy. We're going to click in here, and we say we want it in here. So then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, here's our navbar row. Navbar rows are going to be flex. They're going to be horizontal like this. And God knows why it's doing that. What we're going to actually do, and this is just something that I do, is see this brand? This brand is just annoying right now. So I always just have a generic class that I use across everything. And I create tons of combo classes like this, but it's just real generic, just a D none, which is display none, and I just hide it. And that's my combo class for that. And then and I'll just show you this in action. If I delete the D none, see it comes back. But then if I click on the brand here again and I click I want a combo class, the only existing combo class is D none, and now I can disappear it. It's because I need to like position that thing later, and it's just annoying. Okay. So these are now social icons. So we'll get a social icon wrapper. So then we're going to call these social icons. So social icon, and we're going to create that. So now we have a new class called social icon. I probably should have copied that, and I'm going to do that. So delete. Okay. So we're going to, do we want an image in there, or do we want like, I mean, for now, the thing I use for icons is Font Awesome. So it is typography. So I'm actually just going to have a link in here. Like I said, I'm not going to install everything right now. So I'm just going to put IC for icon. Okay. And then we have 1 at the moment. So we're going to go, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Good. Okay. So now this guy here, this social I thing also needs to be flex. So we're going to be flex here. See now, there he goes. Okay. We want these social icons, all right, to have padding. So we want them to have, and this is going to be too much, but we'll do, there's a way to do, like, Alt. See, like, okay, so see how there's, like, I'm on my left? I can drag out my left if I want. So I can do that, right? And I can just drag out the left, drag it back and forth. But if I want to, like, let's just reset this. If I want to do both the left and right, I can click and hold Alt on my keyboard. I'm on Windows. And I can, like, click and drag it around. See? It's just not as, like, nice performance, obviously, because, you know, it's doing, like, two things. Now, there is a way to do all of them. You hold down Shift. I'm holding down the left Shift on Windows right now. And I can, like, click and drag them around. So I'm going to, like, click and drag them out. Oh, there we go. Oh, because it's padding. Whoops, that was my mistake. Okay, there we go. Like 10 is probably too much, but it's fine for now. So we'll leave that. And then we also, if you notice, have a small amount of space. Very small amount of space. And they're going to be like side by side. So we're going to do a, like, we're just going to do maybe 2.5 and 2.5. And again, that's probably way too much, but we'll deal with that in a bit. We want our font inside of the social icon to just be white. So we're just going to make like a quick control because we're probably going to be using that a bunch. So doing that, and then we want it to be all Fs. And that. So there's white. Perfect. Click that. Good to go. So now, as you can see, these are all white. These now have padding. These do all this. But this row, in this particular case, okay, this row is flex, and we want it to be like this. But our justify needs to change based on where we want this. So in our case, I'm going to show you, everything is on the right. So both of these can just be navbar row, okay? And we can both tell the justification to go into the right. But if, let's say, for example, we had another row and it was left aligned, we could then have a combo class of, like, you know, top row, middle row, bottom row, or just have the actual property kind of called out, like left align, right justify, left justify, whatever it is. And then that's how you would kind of control that without creating like a 10 million different things. Okay. So we'll go in, and since, you know, it's easy enough for us, we're going to tell it to align on there and see how it pulled this bottom row, the bottom row in too. So that's super easy, like so. And then now I'm going to show you something here too. So here's navbar row, just for example purpose. We're going to call this the bottom row, okay? Now, bottom row has background, as you can see, of this darker gray, okay? So, but you know, you may already like notice the problem, but we'll show you in a sec. See how it's like showing this, you know, it doesn't look great, obviously. So what we're going to do is, in the navbar overall color, okay, is going to be blue. So we're going to close up our containers. Here's our navbar rows inside of our navbar container, and here is our navbar. Inside of here, we're going to have one row, or we're going to have one div, rather. We're going to add that. We're going to place it above here, and we might adjust it in a second. And this is going to be the bottom color row. Now, we're Canadian. We spell color a little differently. I think that might be the French way of spelling it. Just add the U is what I'm saying. So that isn't a typo. That's just how we spell it, just an FYI. And, okay, so we have that. And we want to make it, I always lose my position controls. Position. We want it to be absolute. Okay. We want it to be 0. So we want it to be hugging that bottom. We want the height, the height, rather, to be 50%. Okay. And we want the width to be 100%. Whoa, not dashes. 100%, please. See that? Easy enough. And then we want there to be a border. Border. I don't know how big. I don't know, 5. Whatever. White. We're gonna adjust this. And we'll make the background color. It's gray. So now, as you can see, there's, you know, sort of the rough layout. Now, the 5 is ridiculous. Maybe like 3. Maybe like 3, something like that. And, okay. So as you can see, the navbar row doesn't exactly line up with this, and this is where it will start kind of getting, you know, we'll start getting the nitty-gritty. We're not going to get in the nitty-gritty today, because I'm going to start losing my voice, but, as you can see, okay, so let's see this guy. This guy's like this. This guy's like this. Okay, so let's make the navbar rows, like, I don't think this will work, but Oh, because this has a bottom. Oh, look at this. Look at this. Well, no, because it still seems to be taller than... Interesting. Width is 100%, and it's still respecting this. Okay, let's take a look at the navbar row. What is this thing? This thing is 100%. It is relative. Good. Its width is 100. This thing should be 50. It is, but if I take that away... Okay, is it... I think it's relative. Is it like... No? Okay. Alright. Well. Okay, fair enough. Alright, so under our social icons, we already have white text. That's fine. We want this gray background, so we'll do that. I keep clicking the wrong thing. Here we go. Gray. There he goes. And then here is our nav links. Now, okay. Here's where things get a little messy with Webflow here and there. And this is probably why it's causing this. See these nav links? These nav links are big. And they are like a default thing. See how there's 20 and it's just gray? That's like the default, de facto, whatever. I don't like that. I'm going to zero it out. Zero this out. Zero that out. Probably shouldn't zero that out because it's going to look like crap. But 10 there. And do 0 there, like that. And then this navbar row comes in. So, we got to see what's going on here. So this thing is just display whatever. I see. Okay, so let's take these nav links. What is this? This is just called nav link. Okay, so we're going to apply the same style to all of them. So we're going to click the nav link there. Click here. Nav link there. Now see it's kind of shrunk up. And now we're going to kind of be able to determine the sizes of our navbar rows that we want. So the width needs to be 100% of the navbar row, right? Of the navbar container. But we can make the navbar container whatever height we want. So we'll mess around with that. So like, I don't know, let's do like a 250. 250 way too big. But you can kind of see where this is coming from, right? And so, okay, let's... I don't like how it's bunching like this. So this navbar row is bunching here. This navbar row is bunching here. There's nothing controlling the heights of these other than what's containing them. This thing is already hidden. This container is this. Let's take a look here. Is this a flex container? The navbar container? Oh, no, it isn't. Okay. Like that. See how it's doing? So we don't want it to center. I mean, it's not going to affect anything. Want it to stretch out. But you see how, like, it's just too independent? Like, I just don't want it to be like this. So what we're going to do is, get rid of this. We're going to, go into here. We're going to reset that to be auto. And it's going to be auto according to the rows. And then we're going to go to our navbar row, make sure we have navbar row. And it'll tell you we have 2 on this page. So we're going to go, like, I don't know. Probably too big. Too big. 0. 50 pixels. So, like, see, there you go. So, like, I like the fact that the rows are pushing. They're the thing pushing the navbar to be big. And the navbar is responsive enough. Like, as you can see, you can make it, like, 20. And see how it, like, squishes? So, we're gonna control the height of the navbar via the rows instead. That's just a little sort of tidbit, a little thing that, like, I'm sure if you're a CSS guy, you know, that you kind of get caught up in. But anyway, so there's that. Now... Obviously, this navbar row, or these nav items need to be white. So, like I said, there's already a nav link thing set up here. So, we're just going to set it to white here. Easy enough. And there's that. So now that we have like a general layout, and we generally have our icons. Well, actually, we don't generally have our icons. So, you can see here that our navbar row is right? It's the right height. It's all this blue. But these guys... have a little bit of like margin around them, and as you can see here, they do on the left and the right, you know, a bit, but they do not have at the top and bottom. So let's go and fix that. So click into this icon, and what we want to do is we just want to do a quick check in this case. So padding, absolutely. Margin, nothing. Okay, can we go and we should check? I can't remember whether I put padding in here. So it's a flex item. It's aligns this. Okay, so as you can see, see how our social icon wrapper, now of course it's blue on blue right now, so it's a little hard to see, but this social icon wrapper, I don't know if you can tell on the stream, but it's actually just wrapping this. So our icons are actually fine. Like they're at 100%, right? They're maxing out the parent container's height, but the parent container isn't maxing out the navbar row height, and it's the only thing in here. So we want this thing to be 100%. Now this is where it's going to get tricky here, because now now this is maxed out, and now these aren't centered anymore. So we're going to click into here, and like, I mean, I've been told I use Flexbox too much, but like Flexbox is super easy for stuff like this. You just sort of like do that. Flexbox, align it right through the center there, and now these are exactly as they should be. Now these should actually be light gray. So let's make that color. So not the color because that's for the font, but let's make it let's make another color. So let's make another color. We're gonna call it hat light gray, and then we're gonna make it like just something real easy, something like that, right? Just for now, we'll get all the proper hex things going as we need to. So there's that. Easy enough. There's your icon. Here's your nav links. They're there. They're fine. Now let's kind of get the general positioning of our brand. So our brand, as I've said before, you can see it has the little eye with a cross through it. That means it's displayed none, and that's why it's not showing up. So the navigator reflects that, and so does the thing over here. This is super useful because sometimes you'll be inspecting element, and in Webflow you'll make something display none, but in JS, which doesn't run, like let's say you have a custom JS script, that custom JS script doesn't run in the designer, but it will run in production. And so sometimes you'll be like, where is this element? Because you'll be troubleshooting the production site. You'll inspect element. Something will be there. You'll be like, where is it? So then if it's hidden, you can find it here. Easy enough. So, okay, let's fix this. So we're going to get rid of the D none because we don't want it to be D none anymore. And we want this thing to be whatever. So this, we don't care about the link, but we care about the image. And the image is whatever. So the image, the height needs to be 100 in our case. I don't think you can. Oh, yeah, there it goes. Perfect. And, I mean, obviously we don't have an image, so we can't, really do much with it. But in most cases, we're going to put the hat logo here, and that's going to be good enough. Now, this navbar is pretty small. We might not keep it like this. And these need to be clickable, so we'll probably do nav links. So let's actually just do that right now. So these are social icons. So what we'll do is we'll add a link block inside of here. Okay. And like I said, we're just setting up the skeleton so we can get started quickly next time. So we'll take one of these social icons, we'll dump it in the link, and there it goes. So now, obviously, because it's a link, it has like some preconceived things. So number one is, we don't want that text decoration. We don't want that underline, because as you can see here, that's what it does there. And we want this thing's height to be 100%. Now, it's not going to do that for us. Okay. Let's take a look here. And I wonder if we make it relative, will it bring this down? Maybe there's some padding applied. No. No, there's no border. So the height ain't gonna play ball, eh? And again, if anyone has any questions or anything like that, feel free to reach out. So we have our height set to 100%. The other thing, like, this doesn't necessarily need to be like this though. Height's 100%. This thing should be height 100%. It is, but for some reason it's pushing its inside. Oh, I always have trouble with link blocks in here because I never think of a link really doing anything. I just sort of like wrap it in real life, with an A tag, and then it just sort of like fixes it. But in this case, it's almost like there's padding, like this, See, it's weird. Take a look, see here. Make it flex. There we go. Yeah, we may have to make it stretch with the align. That's fine. Okay. So what we'll do then is, just so this isn't called this link block, we're going to rename this class, and we're going to call it social icon link. Perfect. And you just saw there, actually, just as a real quick aside, you just saw there that it won't let you rename things. See, like, that already exists. So you can't accidentally screw up your classes when there's classes, like, all over the frickin' place. Okay. So now you can see there's only one of this on this page. We have a bunch of these. So again, we'll just take, since we have nothing, independent about these, we'll take these, we'll delete them, and we'll take this new one here, we'll copy it, we'll click on this, and because we want it to go underneath it, and we'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Perfect. So there's our icon, there's our nav bar, and here's like a really basic, responsivity, or a real basic skeleton. A real basic responsivity. Yeah, that's right. Okay, so now, that's basically the nav bar. Again, we're obviously haven't done any typography. We obviously haven't done any of that. But this episode, this stream, is more or less just showing you, the bits and pieces of Webflow and how, you use your actual CSS knowledge. Like, I was looking for padding there. Like, was the link block padding it out? Was it causing an issue that way? That type of thing. Things like text decoration and those type of things. Different breakpoints, as you can see, it gets squished. It's not, amazing, and we obviously need to make it more responsive. Where did my text go? Like, my nav menu disappeared. Right. Okay, so this is a good thing we can touch on. So we need to find our menu button. Here's our menu button. Is our menu button actually there? Yeah, you can see it. Like, really... like, you can see it. Like, it's really squished in there. So what we'll do is... Now, see how it's overflowing a little bit? On mobile, like I said, this nav bar is a little bit small, so I might make this just big U. But... I'm going to like allow it to have a little bit of overflow. Now, this isn't great for UX, but just for my testing, because I'm going to be bumping this button a bunch, and then we'll kind of like more finely resize it. But like I said, this is a little small for, this is a little bit small for, tapping with your finger. And so if this was Facebook and Twitter, you might tap Twitter when you're supposed to hit, whatever. What's going on in the chat here? Anyway, we got a troll in the chat. That's fine. All right, so let's make this actually show up nice. So that, and as you can see here, we'll click the open menu, and there's my icons. So my icons will actually show up here. Or these are the same ones that are in my nav menu. So here's my nav menu. Here's all my nav links. And see, they're the same. See, they still have the same class. But if I want these to be different, so for example, I'll just show like a breakpoint. So we're at the tablet breakpoint. We will click on here, and you make it red. And then if I click over here, see, they're back to white. And you use like the web. This is one of those Webflow systems. So this isn't like, custom. This isn't like regular CSS or, whatever else. This is like actual normal, or this is like a Webflow system rather than normal CSS system. Like, Webflow is the one that handles the whole. That's why we put it in the navbar component, because at this point it puts the menu button, and then you control it with this, menu button settings. You control this with this, and you can also add links in here as well, and you can set where it shows up. So maybe you want the full text, which we might do on tablets, but you would have, less text. You would have, you would have the actual like menu button appear at the phone in landscape, or like the phone in portrait, or maybe you wouldn't even want the menu button to ever appear, and you want it to always just be the nav icons. So, easy enough, pretty simple. And here's another thing too. So here's a selector, or not a selector, but you can see the green here. You can make certain things, like the green is sort of I don't know the official title, but you can make it so that when you open it, the green class is sort of like the status in the system, if you will. So this is if the menu button is open, did you want it to expand a bit? Did you want it to maybe fade out a little bit? And so based on like a sort of a Webflow action, or based on like a technical action in this case, you can make it so that maybe this whole thing goes, all yellow, and make it go all blue or something like that. And so it's simple enough. I think that really concludes the stream for today. I've kind of gone through Webflow. I've gone through my wireframes. I've gone through my prototypes. I've gone through my my Webflow sort of tour. I've gone through my design decisions and what we might change. I've gone through the sort of design process for clients. How to keep users, remove you, how to remove users from your website, how to keep users engaged, how to keep those ones that want to just have a quick check, how to keep those people engaged and have people want to bookmark your page, and so I think that is really it for today. If anyone has any questions, feel free to hit us up on the social media. Feel free to come check out our podcast. A podcast just went up today. And thank you for joining us if you did. And I hope you enjoyed this. Little demo, and we'll be actually building with real assets and actually putting this site together further than it already is in the future stream. So see everybody later. And